This is In the Black with T. Dallas Smith. Conversations with trailblazers, glass ceiling breakers, and champions for change who inspire and cultivate leaders every day.
I'm back in the black with John Ahmann, President and CEO of the West Side Future Fund. In part one, we talked about how the organization began, from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium announcement to the community-driven planning that shaped English Avenue and Zion City. John explained why listening came before development, how blight slowed progress, and why focus stayed on retention instead of displacement. Now, John, I want to circle back to the start of your leadership journey and the people who influenced you, including your uncle. You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah. One of my first jobs at a finished graduate school was at the Atlanta Olympic Committee. I worked at the Atlanta Olympic Committee from 93 to 96. You know, Billy Payne was visionary, and along with Ambassador Young, won the Atlanta Olympics. And working around him and others, so I first met Shirley Franklin and Ambassador Young, I'll come back to that story. But one of the things I really appreciated and really learned out of that Olympics, because I remember when Billy first had that, I was working for U.S. Congressman, and he came to see it. People were kind of like, huh, really?
Atlanta?
It was also the 100-year anniversary for Athens. People were saying, well, Athens is going to win it. So you were like, okay, this is interesting. But he and others with Ambassador Young didn't give up on their vision.
Yeah.
And when they won it, one of the things that it taught me was big vision. Going bold is sometimes the best way to do what people think is impossible.
Yeah.
And then the other thing it taught me, really at the Olympics, was it's really important to have a deadline. Because I've always reflected since then, if we didn't have a deadline of when we could stage the Olympics, they said, well, just let us know when you're ready.
Right.
We'd probably still be meeting about it.
Right. When that clock is taken, it's a whole different thing.
It forces you to think through big and solve problems.
Yeah.
But that was a big lesson. And to land on your story, I was on an elevator at the Olympics and had a name tag on with my name on it. And Ambassador Young got on the elevator. And I didn't know him personally. Of course, I knew who he was. And he looked at my name tag, he looked at me, and I thought I was about to be in trouble, because he was quizzically looking at me. And he said, well, do you know Matt Ahmann? I'm like, yes, sir, that's my father's, that's my uncle. And he said, well, he was one of the white people that marched with us so we wouldn't get killed. And then he marched on off the elevator. and I was just like, holy cow. And my mother and father got divorced when I was really young. So I knew my uncle, but I wasn't deep on history. But then I went back and learned it. And learned he was one of the white organizers of the March on Washington.
Wow. And
was an early leader. He, the executive director of the Catholic Church Association. And at the time, it really struck me because I'm an Atlanta native.
Yeah.
Dr. King's an Atlanta native. All that it's meant to our city, my uncle. So I felt like I got a couple of different strands really feeling a part of this history. And it comes back to the West Side Future Fund. At the ACP, I work closely with then Mayor Shirley Franklin. And working at the ACP, I had the great opportunity around some of, Atlanta's top leaders and learned a lot, in that role from, Mayor Franklin. And then the other, one that's been really inspirational to me, is Ambassador Young and all he's meant to our city. And I should also say, and I've learned a lot from him, when I went to the Metro Atlanta Chamber, Sam Williams was president and CEO of the Metro Chamber.
Yes.
And at the time, in the position I'm older now, but I was relatively young to be in the position I was leading the Chamber's Public Policy Division. That oversaw the Chamber's efforts around transportation, environment, education, et cetera. And that what Sam was the leader at that point was really getting the business community involved and not just recruiting, doing the economic development part, which is the traditional, kind of chamber role, so to speak. Really how you use the kind of the power base of the city's business community to drive change. And so I learned a lot at the time from some of the early corporate leaders that were involved with it, like Pete Carell from Georgia Pacific as an example, Dwayne Ackerman from Bell South, and others who, how you go about driving change in the city between the different, key sectors, the role of the business community, the public side, and the civic, and I could keep going because I've been very blessed to be around a lot of great leaders in our city who have all taught me something.
We were talking about just the magic in the city of Atlanta is we can be anywhere and you'll run into Ambassador Young or Zenona Clayton. I mean, these people that everybody else read about, but we're in the grocery stores with them. We're in different places at that, like, just running into Ambassador Young on the elevator, and he points to the fact that your uncle helped with the movement. And so, and then you were just telling me, because you just visited somewhere just recently, and you sent me pictures, and it surprised you that all these pictures during MLK Day, all these pictures had your uncle was in these pictures. Where was that?
Well, that was at the Booker T. Washington High School. And I
Wow.
say the
Right.
the first, Black high school in the Southeast going back to 1924 was the Booker T. Washington High School.
Mm.
And it opened up in 1924. After the Civil War, whites had the view that blacks don't need a high school education. And so it wasn't until 1924 that Booker T opened up. It was actually thanks to land donated by a very successful Black businessman, Heman Perry. It was on the third referendum vote that it passed. And when Booker T. Washington High School opened up, had over 5,000 students as the first Black high school out the Southeast, where people come pay $50 a year to attend.
Wow.
So an amazing group of leaders have come through Booker T. Washington High School. Among them, Dr. Martin Luther King went to high school there. We have our organization does a great job, Martin Luther King Volunteer Day. And one of the sites we were volunteer at was Booker T. Washington High School. So to your question, I was at the high school, was thanking the volunteers, and I went up to the library. In the library, there's a wonderful archivist, historian who knows so much about the history of the school, was talking to her. But then I walked out, and they have a small room set aside for keepsakes of Dr. King. And, I have an essay he wrote, and there were 4 pictures, to your point, that were up. And I went, I said, look at it. And 3 of the 4 pictures had my uncle in them.
Wow.
So one of them was him marching. One of them was at the White House, meeting about the Civil Rights Act, right before they spoke at and so and that moment was like, wow, what are the chances?
Wow.
And again, something I heard from Ambassador Young that has always stayed with me was coincidence or God's way of working anonymously. Because for me, some of these amazing coincidences, what else could that be but God?
But God, absolutely. Oh man, that's amazing. I want to give a big shout out to Dr. Beverly Tatum, who was the original chair of the board, and I feel honored to sit in the seat where she was, and so I just want to say thank you to her, and so many other who's just part of our board. But I think about, even in terms of the financial model that was put together, when Jeff Sprecher told me, he was involved with it as well. We've got a lot of great leaders in this city who's also been very involved with the West Side Future Fund. What would be the thing that you would say that maybe some leaders who are not involved yet, maybe don't even know about the West Side Future Fund, but reasons for them to come on board to help support this effort?
Back to our vision statement, how do you help develop a community Dr. King would be proud to call home? And back to your point, the reason I live in Sunset Avenue was to go by his home where he lived with his wife, Cred, and their 4 children. And imagine if he came out on his porch with his wife and they're like, hey, John Ahmann, what did you do today?
Yeah.
And you think about what kind of answer would you want to give him and his wife? Like, what would you want to say? And certainly, so I think to be part of, because it's not just the all the right things to do around affordability and great schools and all those things, but the higher, to me, and that's what I find so inspiring, Dallas, it's one of my favorite essays by Dr. King, sermons, I should say, was called The Drum Major Instinct. It was written just a few months before he was assassinated. And in the speech, he talked, all of us have the human instinct to want to be recognized. Narcissism is inherent to humanity, was his point. And he said, the question becomes how you turn that inherent need to be recognized to the good, to the other, not just to the self. And he called and said, you really want to turn to God and in that way, think about the other, because we're all connected with God, but be a drum major for justice. I think that we have a chance on the West Side. It's not just about the things that we need to do. And you're great, back to a great example of it's what are in our hearts and how do we really build out and show what a beloved community looks like. And when I showed up here, folks on the West Side would say, we want to build a beloved community, because that's what Dr. King was talking about when he was assassinated. I mean, and it's a very, long frame where he pulled it from, rooted in Christianity around the beloved community. And I'll never forget an essay because I moved to Vine City, and I talked about this. I'd never lived in basically, overwhelmingly, Black community. I'd always lived in majority white communities.
Yeah.
And when I moved into Vine City, everyone was, none about it was nervous. One of the people thinking, and Makeda, a longtime Vine City resident, wrote an essay called "The Beloved Community is the Alternative to Gentrification." The community is the alternative to gentrification. She talked about all the things the beloved community would call us to, but really spoke to me was not about your skin color, it's not about your economic class, it's about your heart. And how are you showing up to the other and really caring about the other? That really was kind of like, that's where I want to be, right? And as always, I have so much work to continue to do to be, meet my own aspirational frame as a person. But to leaning back to your question, it's an opportunity not just to help rebuild a community, but a community built on these values of love for one another.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Let's look 10 years ahead. And the beloved community, and the name of the podcast is In the Black, because my book is called In the Black. In the Black is a term where I tell people it's the only place where you see where Black is actually a positive. It's because it's typically when you use the word Black is usually
Right.
negative. Black cloud, Black cat is, is always negative. But In the Black is a very positive phrase in the fact that every company wants to be in the black. It means you'll be in the positive. So for the Westside Future Fund to be in the black, to be in the positive 10 years from now, what does that look like to you?
I think we have a set of thriving neighborhoods. So we, need more people, moving in, and again, certainly rooted in the history of the West Side and who's lived on the West Side, but also welcoming other people too. So when you drive through, you see what you see in other, healthy, thriving neighborhoods in terms of the amenities, in terms of the things that the experience people have living in the community, but also back to, a community that is, really, built around this kind of a value system, I think. But I think a lot of what we want to see is that when you think about some of the more healthy, thriving neighborhoods in our city, that these neighborhoods should look like that.
Yes.
The streets are paved, the sidewalks are fixed,
Yeah.
People are living in their homes, and there's not a lot of bunch of illegal, all the things that you don't like about it today. And I remember, Dallas, just when I was growing up, the neighborhoods I was growing up in, they never kind of went to where these neighborhoods were, but like Morningside, when I was growing up, wasn't the Morningside of today. Right? It was very different. The Druid Hill, at that point in time, Emmett Park had a lot of disinvestment. It's not the Emmett Park of today. Now you go back to the neighborhoods, they're wonderful neighborhoods. Long answer your question is that these neighborhoods look like great, thriving neighborhoods, but again, back to a reflection of what we want to achieve,
Yes.
Mixed income rooted in the history of these neighborhoods.
Yes. I bought a house on MLK, and I've told this story, and I'll tell it again because this is, for me, the essence of this community. Older woman came by and said, asked for the person who had been there before. I said, well, they're not here anymore. And she said, oh, well, he said he was going to let me have the couch that's in there. I said, the blue couch? She said, yeah. I said, well, you can have it. She said, you'll do that? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, I don't know how I'm going to get the couch back to the house. I said, well, I'll get my business partners came over. Leonte and Dexter came over, and we moved the couch, and we moved some stuff around and put it in place. And she looked at me and she said, baby, I'm going to fix you a plate. And a tear came to my eye, John. I was so sincere because here I am now as a 63-year-old man now. And I hadn't heard that phrase since I was 14 years old when I lived in that community. And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, you're the reason I'm moving back to this community. I miss that. It was the beloved community for me. And I love the work that we're doing. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the entire board. And I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. This has been your life's work. And I'm glad to be riding alongside of you. And again, for somebody who's been in real estate for 44 years, March 7th, it'll be 44 years I've been in this business. I'm more bullish on the West Side than I am on any other place in this town, with all the amenities that's there, with the Beltline, Georgia Tech, all these other things, great community. I just want to say shout out to the West Side. We love you. Thank you, John. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for that, we'll say thank you for listening to In the Black with T. Dallas Smith, and today, John Ahmann.
Thanks for having me here. Thank you, Dallas.
Oh, this is my pleasure, man. Appreciate you.
This has been In the Black with T. Dallas Smith. To find out how you can change the dominant narrative in the commercial real estate industry and challenge the status quo to improve the lives of others, go to tdsintheblack.com. In the Black with T. Dallas Smith is a production of Forbes Books.